My dreams come true.
Welcome back to Evology, boys and girls. Thanks for coming to class. As always, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Ethan.
How you doing today, man?
You know, I'm crushing it.
Okay.
This is a additional episode for the week.
Oh yeah, we're going two first this week.
Yeah, it's a nice Sunday.
And I'm full of generic breakfast foods from IHOP, so I'm in a really good spot right now.
I offered them the option of going to Waffle House, and they picked IHOP. So.
I'm a Waffle House guy, but like IHOP's okay. And if you notice, we're saying we, as if we have someone else in the room, and like
We don't. All right, moving on.
We're moving on. He doesn't exist. No, we have the man, the myth, the legend, and kind of a robot as well. Guest here today, Patrick, aka RoboPat. How you doing, Pat?
Beep boop. Where's my scoop?
Where's your scoop?
I always thought of IHOP more as like of a premium Waffle House. And I'm
Really?
surprised that y'all disagree with me.
It seems so generic, man.
So actually, my family has a problem with IHOP.
Well,
So we used to go there every weekend after church or whatever.
Right.
And one time the parking lot was so full, we had to park in Ethan Allen,
Oh, okay.
the furniture store right next to it.
Yeah.
And they literally
no.
came out of the store and bitched at us.
No way.
Did they threaten to tow y'all for not shopping at their
Basically.
furniture store?
And we're like, well, we're never buying a couch from you
Right.
ever again.
I feel like that's an easy clapback. Like, hey, you can't park here. I'm like, well, do you serve waffles? Do you serve pancakes?
I'm sorry, I'm not going to buy effing furniture from you.
I'm sorry. Are you a house internationally known for their pancakes?
Also, I don't really know what their
Burgers
goal is there. Are they going to think that they yell at you and you think, you know what, I do need an armchair. Let me come on
Now
in.
that you mention it, I'm getting a sectional.
That's right.
He should have just sold it to you. Like, oh, you want to eat breakfast, but you want to eat it in something super comfortable. Come on in.
Yeah,
Check out
as
our
everyone
wares.
does.
Do
I
you
take
need a
my IHOP to
breakfast
go.
hutch?
Yeah, breakfast hutch. All right, so what we're gonna talk about today is it's almost ceremoniously needs to happen with any kind of anime, show or sort like that is a JoJo episode.
Yeah.
And RoboPat is our resident JoJo expert.
I don't know
would
what
say.
expert.
I
I
don't
haven't read
know.
all the parts.
You know way
I've
more
done
about Araki
7
than
out
I
of
do.
8. 8 is still going, but for those 7, I'm pretty good.
Okay, but yeah, you probably know more than me and Ethan put together. And then after, we're doing another segment of our worst of weeb.
Or Weeb Warning.
Weeb warning.
I'm still not sold on Worst of Weeb just yet.
Okay,
I think
we'll workshop
worst
it.
of the weeb isn't bad.
It isn't bad, right?
No.
It's not bad, but I'm just saying I'm not sold yet.
We can do better. We can
It's
do
not
better.
bad, but it's not.
We could
It's not
definitely do
IHOP
better.
quality.
You mean Waffle House quality?
I don't.
Clearly premium.
I don't. Oh yeah, we'll get into what we watched later, but for now, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Right.
I remember, Pat, you were the one who actually recommended it to me.
JoJo's been a really weird thing. In the last few years, it went from this like almost cult following. Like I discovered it from if you remember from college, Trent.
Yeah.
He got insanely into it. He bought all the volumes. He recommended it to me, and I watched. Mistakenly, I started with part 3 because that was the most popular part. So like imagine starting and you see this guy put a gun to his head and this ghost comes out, picks up the bullet and says, "No, you live." He doesn't say that,
Definitely
but
warrant explanation.
but
right?
starting there, you're like, this is trash. I'm so lost. And so I
Wow.
didn't come back to it for years until
Actually, just, following through the show, same thing. Wow,
All
this
right.
is trash.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh my
You've
God.
watched like 100 episodes. You can't pull the "this is so bad I watched every episode" line
Oh,
that we've
yeah.
heard so many times.
We have a buddy who watched the entirety of Naruto.
All of Naruto.
and then
And
said,
said
"Oh
it's
yeah,
bad."
I hated all of it." Like,
Then
what
don't
are you
watch
doing?
it. Hundreds of episodes, hundreds of hours gone to a trash show.
But yeah, so for those who new in anime, or just kind of maybe living under a rock that likes anime and just never seen JoJo, can you?
Well, that's sort of what I was going to. Is
Yeah, how do you sum it up?
It went from this cult classic to in the last like 2 years, all of a sudden it's blown up. I have no idea what happened, but all of a sudden the show's getting like all the funding. They're selling all these DVDs constantly. I think it's because it became a meme,
And that's what I was gonna say.
right? I mean, do you think so?
It's for sure a meme. And like the way they speak, like, the world.
Having stands
Yeah.
has become a meme. Like it's crazy how pervasive it is. Like there's so many anime now that like they pull down their shirt and you'll see a star on their neck and they'll say like, Oh,
right.
actually, I
Sounds
can't
like
beat you up
Gintama
without.
to me.
Well, I mean, they're comedy shows. Sure, like don't get me wrong, Gintama definitely does it a lot. In fact, like one of his stands in if I remember correctly, I might be remembering this wrong, but he gets a stand. He doesn't know what it is, so he starts fighting it, and they become rivals. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
That is
that's
funny.
That's what I'm saying. Is like I think it's just so memeable. Is what you're saying. It has a lot
Right.
of.
I think it's a little
memorable-
silly, which is
Yeah.
like fine. It's definitely over the top.
The aesthetic is much different than most other animes, and as it got more, as
Yeah,
anime as a concept
for sure.
got more popular, it became more and more of an outlier in terms of aesthetic and storyline. It's unique. It's different.
There's definitely something about like the idea of a stand, the idea of those floating quotes, like the menacing,
Yeah,
like little
like-
quotation
Yeah.
mark looking things.
I think they mean like killing intent.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
But that thing is so iconic that for some reason that's like spread all over the place. So now there's like, even if you don't know what JoJo's Barzard and Barzard is,
Barzard.
you could even see a meme and just be like, oh, cool. I
Right.
get it. That means that dude wants to hurt that person.
There it is.
So what was your question?
So my question is, let me rephrase it. So
You're good at this, Patbot.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Beep boop.
we get in the right patch to be on the show. So someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, I heard about this JoJo show, but I've never seen it before. What's it about? What's the synopsis for the plot that you
Someone
can give
doesn't
to
know
someone?
anything about it.
Nothing about it.
I would say it's just a show about people and fighting spirit. That's pretty much it. You're fighting like each part. It's split into parts. I think I would emphasize because I think a lot of people, it seems like included from what we talked about earlier, expect it to be this really cohesive, long story about a generational battle.
That's what.
And it
that's
is that for
It
a
is
while.
for a good bit.
For a
it
while.
feels- and I think that's what drew me in was like, what's this next member of the Joestar lineage going to
Right.
do?
But then you're getting people who aren't even Joestars, and you're
Right.
like, why do you have a tattoo or
Right.
birthmark or whatever?
So for those of you playing at home, I guess the way we do it, it's about the Joestar family, and the men of the
Right.
Joestar family
Gentlemen.
have been locked in a battle with a vampire named Dio.
It's somewhat. It's like it's hard to explain because if
I
you
think
say
you
the
have to
show's about Dio,
I think you have to explain the first part.
yeah,
So
Right.
it's only 6 episodes. So
yeah, give
me,
us a synopsis.
To me, if you watch the 6 episodes, you'll have at least a base understanding of what the rest is supposed to be kind of hearkening back to.
Right? Yeah,
That's a good way to put it. That's
there's-
almost like your training course.
so there's this subreddit, if I could like shout it out. It's
You may.
again blown up
You
insanely
can't
big.
shout it out.
Nope.
They're not paying us.
So r/boop,
we'll get no kickbacks from that.
r/shitpost crusaders has become the main sub. It used to be the joke
I get
like
Snapchats
circle
from you
jerk
all
sub.
the time about that.
Dude,
from
it's
that sub.
it's blown
It's
up.
funny.
And one of their biggest things is that they say if you're a part skipper, then you're not a real fan because you don't know why they're doing
part
anything.
skipper.
Because if you jump in part 3, like I guess I did
Right.
before quitting and starting over at part 1.
Right.
If you come in at part 3, you won't know why anything's happening. You're just like, there's this eternal evil, and that's kind of all I have to understand.
That's
To
interesting.
I'll
be
be
fair.
real with you. I think you could start at part 3 and be completely fine.
I think
You
you,
think
would
so?
too, but you wouldn't know why.
I think you have a better depth of story.
you don't know who
obviously.
Joseph is.
So what?
That's a good point. He's
Yeah.
the old guy. That's all you need to know.
Well, part of it too is
Well, think about part 4. It is basically part 3, except switch out Dio with somebody else.
essentially, and it doesn't have the same kind of scope. So we'll go through the parts that are out now. We're gonna do 1 through 4. We may touch on 5. We don't want to ruin anything.
Maybe a little if I don't want to spoil anything. So
Golden Wind.
to be clear,
Wind
Ethan's up to part 4,
Like the mid to late
Right.
part 4.
and
I've
Rick is
been-
almost done with part 5.
I've been
I'm caught
ripping
up, yeah.
through episodes in preparation for this episode of the
This
podcast.
this man
Nice.
binged like a true pro.
Like
Yeah,
literally
we were
50
shocked.
episodes in a week.
He
Said
ate.
he's already on
he
episode
ate-
20 of part 4 after he was
man-
on episode 2 of part 3.
This man ate, slept, and did nothing but those 2 things and watched JoJo. I don't think he even went to work this week.
Ate,
I think he just kept.
Sorry, manager.
Yeah, manager, and he understood too. Sorry, manager, I got JoJo to watch. He's like, oh, okay.
He's
Oh
like,
my
"All right,
gosh,
yeah,
what
I
part are
gotta
you
see it."
on?
That's actually a voucher code in our My Time system at work. There's unexpected illness in the family,
Yeah, an anime
funeral,
binge, right.
anime binge.
Anime
You got to check
binge.
that box sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a
Right.
sad thing, but you have to.
Oh, that'd be the dream.
So just for context,
Yeah.
this is a show that when I introduce someone to it, I usually like to put it in context of the world around it, which is where we are in the terms of anime in like 2019. And whenever someone watches part 1, they normally say that it feels kind of dated and that it's full of tropes and
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
But
Which it's supposed to be, I think.
well, it's not just supposed to be. It's from 1987.
It was
this is like
when it was still fresh as like the modern idea of manga was fresh.
This is like this. So Hirohiko Araki, I'm just gonna call him Araki from now on, is the author of the manga. And when he wrote this in 1987, he was kind of parodying a very popular manga at the time called Fist of the North Star. And if you've ever seen Fist of the North Star, which I actually saw it after I saw JoJo,
Would you really?
you'll think I've seen this before. Because it is so similar. It's just this like eternally good hero, eternally evil villain. Villain's blonde. Villain like just like is pure evil for the sake of being evil. No character development whatsoever. But at the same time, I can't tell if they do this on purpose. This is like kind of something that I want to talk about with y'all in a grander sense at some point, maybe in the future. But I can't tell when I'm giving a show too much credit because the way when I watch Fist of the North Star, I'm like, this guy's perfectly good. This guy's perfectly evil. But they're both insanely violent and like they kill people. And I couldn't tell if that's like a commentary or if I'm applying that commentary to it.
I think it's interesting because that's kind of why me and Ethan are doing like pitch or ditch. It's actually one of the things we do because it's not just a matter of expanding our catalog, but it's exactly what you're saying. How do you pitch it to not give something too much weight or too much
Right.
credit?
I feel like I'm giving it so much weight.
Right. Because part one.
Well, we actually just talked about this at breakfast.
Yeah.
Patrick was hyped Rurouni Kenshin.
Yeah. That
like
was
crazy,
so unfortunate.
Like overhyped, watched it and felt let down and ended up dropping it.
I watched 10 episodes. I have the 10 episode rule, and I
that a
still
rule?
walked away on.
You think get the rule book out.
I don't know what
I'm making
you're
this
talking
up.
about.
I'm
There's
making
the religion of the
There's
three.
a religion of
I'm
three.
making a joke about blasphemy of the three.
Yeah.
I'm saying I gave it a good shot. I thought.
Lest you be excommunicated from the chapel of three.
So anyway, if you've watched then part 2 comes out like literally the same year, right? So like 1987. But then part 3, if you like watch part 3 and you like pay attention to like Joseph Joestar in that part, he's got like his little Indiana Jones hat and get up
cool.
on,
Yeah.
and you might think like, man, this reminds me a lot of Indiana Jones. You wouldn't be wrong because the Indiana Jones, it's not just that Araki was like, man, I love this movie. This is such a cool like kind of concept that I want to emulate in my manga. It actually was released in 1989, Stardust Crusaders. So I'm saying this dude saw Indiana Jones
And was like,
and it wasn't like a callback to one of his favorite movies. He's like, it just like came out and he's like, yeah, I can do that.
I could do that. Let's make an anime of that.
Let's make a globe-trotting adventure
Which honestly,
where we fight my first part villain.
that part of it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Them going to old
But
crashing
I
another
have
plane.
so many problems with part 3, and we can obviously talk about that in a
Sure.
bit. But
Right.
I think we should just give them a quick little synopsis here.
So
I know there's a lot of people on here that have only watched listeners that have only seen a few anime. So let's just give them a quick little plot.
right.
I think part 1 we can do really fast.
Really
part
fast.
2 a little less fast.
I bet you could do part 1 in 3 sentences.
You can probably do it in one. I mean, the Joestar family in
Yes.
the late 1800s adopted a kid named Dio and decided to try to destroy this family from within because his father told him to do that.
That's exactly
And
right, because his
then
father was mean.
And then there's a mask that turns people into vampires, and to combat that, Jonathan Joestar, our first main character, because as you'll learn in each part, it's a different member of the family in the future.
Yeah.
So
For a few parts.
for a few parts,
Well,
yeah.
Technically, everyone's still Joestar related.
They got Joestar.
Giorno is still
blood.
related?
Who?
Giorno?
Do you want me to tell you how? He's directly related.
We'll get
Just
there.
say yes.
Well,
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get
Okay.
there. So,
Giorno Giovanna.
yes. And so there's the mask that turns people into vampires, and then by combating that, you have to learn crazy breathing to use power from the sun called Hamon.
Oh, we're already in part 2.
No, we're not. That's
Really?
That's part 1,
That's
right?
the end of part 1. Man.
That's part 1.
They cram so much in those like 6
they
episodes.
really,
I'm
really
the
do.
expert, right? I
Yeah,
don't
you're
know.
the
I don't know part
You're
1.
here because you know what
I
you're
know.
talking
But
about.
I will say, there was this really weird stuff in part 1, and like Patrick explained to me and a few other people have explained to me, the Araki forgets meme.
Yeah.
Araki forgets everything.
He often gives people powers that never show up again.
So basically, do you remember when Jonathan is fighting those two, like Blue Thunder or whatever the guy's name was,
Oh, yeah,
and the other like Nordic knight or Scottish knight? He gives him the sword, writes pluck on it,
Yeah.
and then never talks about the sword ever again.
Never. It was a rite of passage, and that's all it was meant to be.
It's the whole thing. Like, he does
He's
just
like,
forget plot points.
Do you remember that
The
Dio
sword
had?
says luck, and I'm gonna apply P for pluck.
What?
Do you remember when Dio had eye lasers and could freeze things?
Yes,
with his...
I do. Araki doesn't.
Rocky forgot that in
Forgot
part
he could
3.
do
He
that.
said, "Oh, he's actually just a vampire." with
I'm
his
just
skin."
saying, eye lasers would have been pretty helpful with part.
Pretty sweet.
So based on,
Can
so
you do part 2?
Part 2 is actually pretty complicated, but I'll try to get over it
I
fast.
think
just
it
for
was
the
way
listener.
cooler.
I love
Part 2 is great. It's about the mask in part 1 actually was related to a series of masks that were worn by these ancient Aztec gods. And correct me when I start to be wrong, because it's been a while.
You're still on track.
But they meet this one
I'm
who
not
gets.
100% on Aztec, but go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm saying Aztec
I
as it
think it
looks
was
like Aztec
Egyptian.
to me. I don't
I
think
don't
it's
know.
Egypt. I think it's Aztec.
I think it had to be Egyptian.
Because that's why they were going in part 3 to Egypt, right?
That's just because Dio was there.
Oh, well, why was Dio there? To get the other
Because
map?
that's where Enyaba was.
No, remember there's 3 trees hidden in different parts of the world. So I think they just happen to
Yeah,
be
so-
a species of superhuman or whatever.
Anyway,
Anywho.
they're in different parts of the world. So
Ancient
they meet
superhumans.
this one. And before I say this name, I want to make it clear that one of the tropes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is that Araki is, I call him an American weeb, because he's a Japanese person who's obsessed with American culture.
And you see it in all of his work, like
And
everything.
specifically in all of his work, not only the Indiana Jones thing that we mentioned before, but in part 2, he starts naming things. And you may have noticed that Dio is a rock band from the 80s, I think, or 70s.
70s, 80s, yeah.
And he starts naming all of his heroes and villains as much as he can after popular rock groups. So, like, one of the main characters of part 1 is Robert E.O. Speedwagon, or if you abbreviate that, it's REO Speedwagon.
REO Speedwagon.
Which is
And
just like, and it's over and over, just these characters. So they meet.
Which I will say was a really fun trope.
I mean,
It's
yeah,
constant, too. It never
stops.
That adds to why I think it was so, when people started to latch on, I mean, it has so much Western culture,
Yeah.
American culture specifically, that it was just made it super easy.
It makes it easy to get into, yeah.
And especially, where does part 2 take place? Also, it's in New York, right? Wasn't that where?
That's where he's from.
That's where
Yeah.
he's from. So that's
So-
he's
so
like,
the-
he's
right.
a New York dude.
Which
you
is
know?
why
Like,
it's weird, because, like, Jonathan Joestar, it's kind of like what Ethan's
Actually, I
saying.
think he
They're
just
like,
shows up in New York. Is the
he's
beginning.
definitely American.
No, he's not. He's British. They literally had just showed up in the beginning of that.
Oh yeah, he's technically British.
Man, I definitely think of him as American just because he has so much English that I
his
just think
family-
he's
now
British
he,
or American.
he ended up living there the rest of his life. in
Got
New York.
it. Yeah.
Remember Smokey Brown and all that?
Yeah, Smokey never comes back.
Well, yeah,
Yes, he does. He's the mayor.
he's a
Yeah.
he's British because his family was going to New York on a boat in the end of part 1.
Yes.
And that's how they even got there, because he had another baby,
Right.
or she had a baby.
So they meet these. Anyway, they've tracked down the masks and they find out that they belong to these like Aztec gods. And I say Aztec even if that's wrong.
Well, we're gonna call him
And
Matt.
so there's 3 main ones and one kind of sub one that I'm gonna skip over. But there's Wamu, who is a parody of Wham, the band.
Wamu.
There's AC/DC, which is my favorite because it's spelled
too.
ESIDESI. It's brilliant.
That's great. Yeah, you see when you phonetically pronounce it.
And then there's Cars, who is KARS, but just Cars.
Cars, yeah.
And these 3 are essentially the most powerful beings who have ever lived on the planet Earth up until this point. And they're getting resurrected because Dio was messing around with that mask and because people have been unearthing the other masks and being like, what are these? Oops.
They are rad. They added the most like poignant, like, you have X amount of time to get this good at doing these things, or else you're screwed. Like,
Oh, that's right. So they have like this almost eternal unlimited power. And one thing that Wham does is he fights Joseph Joestar and he beats him so easily, like that he says, I don't even want to fight you actually, because I could destroy you. So I'm going to give you a timer. And he puts this like little lock
No,
on his heart.
actually,
yeah, wait.
Joseph was going to get killed, and he said, "Yeah, you should probably kill me now, because if you don't, I'll come back in a month and kill
Is
you."
that what he
Yeah,
taunts
that's
him and then he
exact-
gives him the
that's
challenge?
exactly-
I couldn't remember if
Whamu
it was
was
taunted
like,
or not.
you what, mate? All right, fuck you. And then like gives him that ring or
That's
whatever.
right. He
And then
puts
it
a
says-
ring on his arm.
He rings his arm and
It's
says,
insane.
all right,
And he
you
says,
gotta-
in the most cocky anime way
was it
possible, he says,
6
come
months
back.
or something like that. You have 6 months. Come back here.
Yeah,
we'll
go
fight
train.
then.
Come,
Go
maybe
train.
then you can fight me. So, long story short, We go through. He gets trained by his mentor, Lisa,
Right.
who trains him in the art of Hamon. Again, like the breathing technique that helps you fight these ancient creatures that we find are vampires, as they're like susceptible to sunlight. You know, they can turn others. That's kind of like where Dio got his power. But like they're not as strictly vampires as Dio is.
Yeah, that's weird too. So it's like that was one thing I never explained was is there like a race? Of
Yeah, there's a
vampires?
lot never explained.
so-
it's just an ancient, mysterious power.
Right. So that and then that's pretty good. You know, JoJo. You know, all of them are called and referenced by all the people around him as JoJo. That's why. Yeah. So
Right.
everyone
I think
is
we skipped over that.
JoJo.
So there's Jonathan Joestar in part 1.
There's Joseph
Joseph
Joestar
Joestar
number
in part 2.
and then
So then part 2 ends.
part 2 ends.
Joseph wins. Spoiler.
Oh no.
And
So
he
part
crashes like a million planes.
he crashes 2 planes in one part. Like, why do you let him fly a plane?
Yeah, we were talking about how you can't trust Joseph to drive anything because by either he thinks it's a big brain play or he accidentally does it, but he crashes what's a body count? Like 3 planes in a submarine?
It's 3 in a submarine. That I can count right now off the top of my head. I think. Remember when he pulls out a Tommy gun in that restaurant? For
yeah,
no
that was my
reason?
insane.
That's
That
how
dude-
I knew that he's my favorite. He's just like
Absolutely strapped, ready to go.
Oh, yep.
He said, "You what?
That
Where's
was,
my dessert?"
that was Araki's view of what like in
What
New York
Americans,
gangster
yeah.
was like. Just they always have a Tommy gun and a
Yeah, he has a
drum,
Tommy gun.
drum magazine
right.
with the clip.
Clicks it in.
So that was actually kind of a cool thing, though. The guy he's fighting in that part was still part of part 1. So he's basically killing off the rest of part 1.
Oh, was that Straitso?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Straitso, by the way, for the reference, there's Dyer and Straits, and they're friends. So Dyer Straits, like the
They're
band.
buddies.
Yeah.
But he was one of the teachers of Hamon in the first part with Jonathan. So it's kind of cool that they continue that into part 2, and then they kill him off early. So it's basically like this is a new part, a new story, right?
Exactly.
So I thought that was a really cool thing.
That is an interesting transition that
Yeah.
I never really picked up on. He's
That's-
kind of saying, "This is over. This is
Right.
my story now."
I think that's why, again, they're super attractive as a concept because while you may have different stories per part, you did have a constant through line, and Araki was really good about tying little piece of one into another just to keep it feeling consistent. And then you go to part 3.
Well, actually, I felt
yeah.
like 1 to 3 felt fairly through. To
Okay.
me.
Yeah,
Because it's like a grandfather, his grandson, and then his grandson.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
all you're doing is skipping a generation. I'm the new JoJo. This is my part.
Right.
So part 3 is the one that most people, I think, would say is their favorite part. And I would also say controversially, most people say is like where it gets good. And
Interesting.
I would personally disagree with that. I think
Ethan,
that
thoughts?
I think part 2 is amazing.
Part 2 is infinitely better than part 3.
So part 3 is
I
where
would
they
say. So let's just say, first of all, part 3 is 46 episodes.
it's much
So it's
longer
a
than what we're
effing
used to.
slog.
It's a
Because I think it's
thick
24
boy.
combined, part 1 and 2, right?
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
6 and
18.
which
Yeah.
is you're going to more than double that in one part. That's
Right.
unreal.
I would say if they chopped it in half, I would probably have liked part 3 better than part 2.
The problem with part 3 is that it's just a
Interesting.
slog because you get used to the fights. As cool as they are at the beginning, it's very repetitive. It's very monster of the week. It's very
It was
Yeah.
really
I'm the bad
annoying
guy
to me.
this time.
I could not stand it. Also, they don't explain it till part 4, but stand users apparently will just find each other randomly.
Well, so let's introduce this first. Part
Right.
3 is the introduction of the stand, which, again, American culture. Araki named it after the song "Stand By Me," which is, like
I actually didn't know that.
your partner force that is
Right.
sticking with you in the thickest situations. And he defines it in the part as your fighting spirit. And this can manifest itself in any way. But in part 3, it's a big, strong man.
So it's very fascinating the way that stands are introduced because it's something that I think, Pat, you missed when you watched it. We were talking about it at breakfast, is that they have a throwaway line that stands are powered by the same power as Haman, which is the breathing.
I
breathing
missed it because
utilized from
it's
the sun.
such a hack line. It's just
It
like,
is, but-
I don't want to throw Hammond in the garbage, but I also super am because I came up
Literally,
with this idea that prints money.
And you'll never, ever in a million years, like in any other part, I don't think you're going to hear Hammond again. It's now stands, right?
But this is where I think that it's like different because this is where Araki said, I'm done making these over exaggerated parts of like Fist of the North Star and other popular series. Like even part 2, you could argue the villain was so insanely strong, it's still like a parody of shonen.
Oh, yeah.
But part 3, he says, this is my idea. Stands are actually a dope idea, and I'm going to go with this.
Because how broad can you can't get any broader than
A
that.
stand can be anything.
It can be anything.
Right. Like, there's the sun, like Ethan was saying, is his least favorite.
Oh, yeah. Okay, and now that we have
Well,
stands.
as a power, it's sick.
Right.
But it's
so
also super dumb.
It's pretty
And then there's the
dumb.
boat, which was a stand.
Super sick.
Right.
Okay.
So
I didn't love
what-
that
so
one.
Why? I thought that was
It's
cool.
a boat.
I think it was cool. I think it was cool in the
The
writing of
monkey
the show
had a
because
stand.
It showed you what stands could be,
Coco
and the limitless
Jumbo.
potential for variety. Because when they were like, "Oh, the whole boat's a stand," whoa, stands are crazy.
Wait, that's not Coco. Coco Jump's the turtle. I think that.
Yeah.
What was the name? Like Captain and Tennille was the.
Yeah,
the monkey in the ship.
Yeah,
That was great.
Anything that lives can have a stand.
Right, and they're
Anything
mostly
that
named
lives.
after bands. Just a
Right.
reminder.
So I'll say,
Yeah, what are your thoughts on part 3? I guess I was curious to hear yours, Ethan.
like, so the beginning was good. I think the first like episode or 2, 3 was really good. It set up what part 3 was all about.
Yeah, part
It
3 is about finding
introduced-
Dio again.
Introduced the grandson, Jotaro.
Yep,
It talks about Dio, like brings him back into the story,
that's right.
and it gives you stakes.
Yes.
And also, I love the way it
Jotaro's mom
introduces.
will die if you do not stop Dio in 50 days.
But how cool is it the way they introduce Stans to the viewer for the first time when
walking
Jotaro
down the
himself
stairs?
is
Yeah.
terrified of his
Oh,
own
that
stand.
was so sick.
Right.
He says, "I'm haunted by a ghost," and he's locked himself in a cell.
he doesn't know
because
what it is.
He wants to protect others from this spirit that's haunting him. And he
Right.
says, "Watch this," and he puts a gun up to his head, shoots it, and his stand catches the bullet, which says a lot. But again, maybe this is me giving it too much credit, but to me that says, "Wow, he's tried this before." Like he's been so tortured by this spirit that he tried to kill himself already and realized he can't
Right.
because it catches the bullet for him.
I love the idea of stands because of that variety, but also because it's something that happens to people, not
Yes.
anything they understand.
Some are born with them.
Some are given
See,
them.
that's the problem that I'm having is it's such an inconsistent
Yes.
thing.
This
is
is
no
not
definition
some,
for it.
There
If
is
there
no
was a
deep well.
consistent power system with it, I would feel way more comfortable with the whole part
Right.
3, 46 episodes.
Yeah.
But it's like some people were born with them. Like
Yeah.
at
Like
one
Kakyoin,
point,
I think, was.
at one point, Kakyoin and Polnareff.
Yeah, that's right.
'Cause- So there's a stand later
Sure
that
you
will
do.
basically turn you back into your kid version of yourself. Well, he still had his stand. It was just a baby stand.
That was. But that was how. Honestly, that wasn't even like a mistake, though. That's him saying, "I still have my
Rocky
stand
forgets.
because I was born with it." Like that was a
No,
very
I know.
specific plot
that's what
point.
I
Yeah.
understand that. I'm saying that is saying yes, he did have it when he was young. So did Kakyoin.
Mm-hmm.
But the most powerful family we know of, the Joestars,
Right.
only get it when
When Dio. So
Dio
something
gets
that we didn't mention is that Dio in part 3 now has a Joestar birthmark, and you realize.
Well,
Even
okay,
though-
so in part 1, he gets his head gets beheaded.
Yes.
Correct.
As the last episode.
But he's immortal, so he's fine.
Yeah.
And Jonathan sacrifices himself at that point to try to get rid of Dio.
Mm-hmm.
Dio uses his vampire powers to attach his head to Jonathan's body,
Right.
and then gets
And
in
then
a
he
little,
rests for years and
like
years
100
and
years
years.
or something.
And
then
that's
boom,
and
stands.
when he wakes up, that's when the stands of the entire Joestar family activate. Even
And what
even
was-
Jotaro's mom, remember, she gets like gripped by it.
Well, did they ever explain why stands became to be? Do you know this later
So
on?
I'm saying, unfortunately, you don't get a really good explanation until I would say part 6 is the most complete explanation, but part 5 is
awesome.
almost everything.
Part 5's got some interesting
Part
stuff.
5's pretty good, I thought. It's like it's
Yeah.
not perfect, but it says like arrows exist. You get hit by an arrow, you might get a stand. If you
Right.
don't, you don't. Some people are born with them. The end. That's it. Like
Mm-hmm.
it came from space. It's a virus. It powers up your cells.
Yeah,
That's
right.
it. I mean, there's no like specific science to it because I'm not sure if you could write a way that everyone has these like insanely unique powers for no reason.
No, I think you'd have to have a reason. I think that's what you're getting at is that you feel that the what
It
Well, like Naruto has
stands
chakra.
feel loose is what you're saying. There is
I
no
think my
consistency.
Right, but my problem is the show is about the Joestar family.
Right.
You should at least have a real reason why they have it or do not have it.
The reason was that Dio got so strong that it like awoke in this
That's crazy.
awoke this power.
Yeah.
But that's my problem is this is a strong family. Like,
No, yeah, I can't defend the
like
consistency
as far
of the power.
as we know. And then here's the other problem. Why would Lisa not have one?
Because Lisa's dead.
No, that's a valid point.
Wow, man.
But I'm just saying in part 2.
You insensitive.
Because no one had a stand in part 2. Like, I'm saying, like,
I
you
get
can't
it.
really explain it because Araki didn't come up
Right,
with it
he came
until
up with
part
it as
3.
he was going.
This
The
was not
problem
like
is
planned.
He
Yeah.
should have made. I think he could have
Like,
retconned
how
it
would you
in some
retcon-
way to
how
make
would you
it only
retcon-
the Joestars did not manifest it.
But how would you retcon nobody having stands until Jotaro had one?
That's not what happened.
But I'm saying in terms of like our time in like real life, nobody in the comics had stands until Jotaro was introduced to have a stand.
That's-
Like just because he
and
came up with that
everyone,
idea.
and then everyone now
But
just
remember,
has them.
he meets Avdol, Joseph, late in his later life, and figures out about stands.
No, I'm saying the reason that it's limited is because he didn't come up with it until later. So I'm saying there's nothing he could have done to like explain before then. Like unless you want to retcon why everyone specifically didn't have one.
That
in
is
parts
that's
one and two.
what I'm
That's the
asking
retcon.
for.
That's
Which
the
would have been
retcon
possible.
you'd
Maybe you could
do.
have said the mask was limiting them or
Yeah, like
something.
why then
Yeah.
do stands start to show
Or
up?
you could have even said the meteor, and honestly, this might be the case. you
Yeah,
could have even
you-
said the meteor struck between parts 2 and 3, the one that had the stand arrow material in it.
Right. Yeah.
So-
okay. No, that actually, see,
That might be the case. I don't know.
You know, RoboPack could do a Rocky's job. I think he can write. He can write.
Hey
part,
man,
he can
stop
write
forgetting
part 9.
people's powers. It's really annoying.
Is part 8 the last part?
Part 8 is still going.
No way.
I don't think it's. I'm assuming it's the last part because he's getting old and he's
That
been
man's-
doing this for literally like 40 years
That's
almost.
a man dedicated to his craft right there. I respect that.
I mean,
Sounds
okay,
like
so
Rohan.
Sounds like Rohan.
he said that he modeled Rohan after himself.
Wow.
Rohan is kind of so. Let's talk a little bit about part 4. Part 4 is pretty rad in my opinion. As much as I think
Can I just bitch about part 3 really fast?
Go.
Yeah, dude, I would
Go
love,
off.
I would
I don't wanna
love
go
you
back
to.
and
go
forth
off,
constantly.
sis. Just do it.
Go for it.
So it's 46 episodes. They give themselves like a 50-day limit to go kill Dio and save Holly.
Yeah.
Right.
The entire first like 45 days is completely unnecessary.
I think that you could skip to to the Darby Brothers, I think. You
Yeah,
could skip
I-
to Darby
100%.
Darby Brothers was one of the
because they were still relevant.
They were relevant.
And
So-
they were amazing
basically-
fights, but they
Yeah,
were also
they were
relevant.
great.
This is something I really love in shows, but did not like the execution here. When there's like this group that you're out to get, like the 10 Great Wizard Saints.
Right. It was a bit.
Or the...
Remember when this is coming out, though? This isn't a trope at this point. This is like
No, I'm
almost
just saying,
new
I
ground.
love this trope,
Okay.
and this
Right.
might have been the first,
Interesting.
instance
He's one of
of
the
it,
pioneers.
but
of
I
that.
did not like the way that he did it.
Did you
Interesting.
feel like it's wasting time to fight all these people when you have a time limit?
So I'll explain a little bit more. So
So like, how does beating Nappa do anything to like Frieza, for example? You know what I mean?
It just gets his attention.
Because like that's just like a small villain compared to like like these guys with stands. That's like, oh, I'm a tarot card villain.
I think they
I
did
have
it
the
the
sun.
same way. So he was doing it to build on their stands. My
Right.
problem is the only persons you're building on is Jotaro's. The other 3 have had these since birth.
Yeah, but Polnareff's evolves. He
No,
he
he had
loses
it
the
since-
armor. Remember?
He had it since he was a little kid.
But I'm saying it changes
Right.
over the part. It becomes like faster and stronger because he
and
sheds
then it
his
gets
armor.
his armor back later.
He does get his
I'm
armor.
just saying-
armor back.
later.
So no,
That's
but I
true.
get 100% what you're saying. Is
I
that
do.
they-
Are you saying that like there's no impact to beating these people?
Yes,
because like
he used
nobody's
it
growing
exclusively
except for Jotaro.
He used it exclusively for Jotaro's
development,
exposition and
Yeah. Right.
development.
and you felt like
But my problem is all of the first 13 villains are basically uninteresting.
I don't know.
I think the powers got really cool once we started getting to the Egyptian gods.
yeah.
So there's 13
yeah.
tarot cards, which I don't know how this is part of it, but Jotaro's group
part
are
of this.
part of the tarots.
right.
I agree with
This
you
is
in
my
that
problem.
part doesn't make that much because like I'm Silver Chariot, I'm Star Platinum, and then the bad guys
You're starting to understand.
also have those names.
He's like
Yeah.
explaining it in such a way that all stand users can be like explained, or their power explains one of these
Right.
tarot cards, and then you find out that isn't the case at all.
That's only for the tarot cards.
only
Because
for the-
that's what I'm saying. It's like leading you in though.
Yeah,
because
except-
stands are a
Right.
new
Except
idea.
his party is part of it.
So you're saying you could have just done it for his party, like, hi, I'm Silver Chariot, I have a silver stand, and it has a stabby sword.
I'm just saying, like, so for Kakyoin and
Because like Magician's
Polnareff-
Red tells you exactly what it does. It's a
Yes.
fire throwing thing.
Bird.
Well, I'm
I
just
mean, it's a
saying-
bird, has nothing to do with it. I'm Abdo.
Polnareff-
I'm gonna die 3 times.
Polnareff and Kakyoin are fine because they're both start off evil because of the flesh buds.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I feel fine with them being
Yeah,
part of the silver or the 13 tarot cards. Abdul has absolutely no reason to be part of the 13.
So you're saying they have no like? What's the point of giving them the same naming convention if
Yes.
people are originally good anyway?
Yes.
I think it's just how he wrote it, man. I don't.
I know, I'm
I
just
don't think
saying
there's a
it's really,
reason.
really
But it's funny.
annoying.
It's funny you say that because like that illustrates probably the one thing I would tell anyone who is yet to watch this show and wants to is that it's in the name. It's a bizarre adventure, both in the way it's written and the characters and the powers. It's none of it. It all feels loose, and that might be why it's so popular because it doesn't follow a lot of the conventions. Because either it came before the convention or started pioneering with it at a time when, like you said, those tropes weren't a thing yet. Araki was pioneering a way in, and he's been doing it for 40 years.
Yeah, I just think to me what bothered me is I felt like he was figuring out a story as he was writing it. He did not have the end.
Absolutely true.
Oh, yeah.
That's true for every single part. He has like the end in mind, and then he makes like a million little
he
baddies.
reverse engineers a way to get there.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I think you have it right on the money there.
I think you keep the first 3 episodes.
It's possible that he only planned for like 13 people or however many tarot cards there are. Is it
It's like
13?
16 or something like that.
Like,
maybe?
and I
don't
think
know.
he would have
and
planned
then
for
he
the
realized
world
he
to
only
be
got
the
to Calcutta.
because like the world would have been the last one. That would have made
It's like, oh,
sense, right?
shit.
Like the world is like the strongest one. That's Dio. Cool. That's the last one. Oh wait, it's
wait.
been like 4 chapters though. Yeah.
What do we do in the meantime?
Well, I mean that, and then all the enemies early are beaten in 1 chapter or maybe 2 or 1 episode.
Yeah. They're definitely monster of the week, and that's always going to be true for JoJo. Like even
they
part
always do
4,
the
part 5.
two-parters. I love it. I mean,
Normally they have a little more impact than they do in part 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like like in part 5, they're all part of the gang. Like that
Right.
makes sense.
and part 4, part 5.
But part 3 is just kind of this anomalous. I like Dio, so I'm evil kind
right
of thing.
So part
Well, I think they're doing a good job explaining that.
you good?
I just like almost sneezed all over the mic. No,
It's gross.
I
I
think
hate
they
it.
do a very good job explaining why everyone is drawn to Dio. Like he just has this, the like.
Yeah, he's just like seductive
he-
aura.
yeah.
Yeah,
people
like
love him.
charismatic, like
Yeah.
like all vampires do,
They
and
all
like
have high
all
charisma.
media. They have
That's a good point. I honestly never thought about it.
compulsory like
Yeah.
ability, right?
What is that called?
Just
Compulsion.
high charisma. I don't know.
Got it.
Got good
It's
high charisma
something.
instead. Yeah.
I think compel is probably the right word.
It's just magnetic personality, almost literally. So okay, well, it's like
Magnanimous.
part 4, 1 sentence go.
Right.
Murder,
yeah,
murder
I feel like we've
mystery.
been talking about this a while. I want to get into why
I just
Ethan
wanna
doesn't
bitch.
like part
Yeah.
4's art style.
Ethan just wanted a bitch. She's just
Well, no, I'm not done yet.
Oh, what?
So
You got more about part 3?
stands as a power is cool.
Yeah.
My problem is if the weakness of a stand is just fight the completely unprotected user. A lot of
times your stand protects you.
I'm just
though.
saying a lot of the fights
Right.
throughout the series, they're just like standing next to each other. We know JoJo is a beast. He could just walk over and punch him right in the face while their stands are
Yeah.
fighting.
So actually, I think this is my conspiracy. No,
And
I
there was
think
this distance problem with stands.
No-
At one point, it looked like shiny, whatever the hell his name is, Star Platinum,
Star
could
Platinum,
go
Star
really
Platinum.
far away.
he cannot.
No, he's
And then
very-
all of
yeah.
a sudden he's staying only a meter
He's
away.
a short range stand. They make that pretty clear.
So that
They do,
There is,
but in the
some-
beginning he's all over the effing place.
There are some rules that are loosely followed.
can
like
bend
the,
some.
The less range your stand has, the more power it seems to have.
Not always true.
Right, but you can also have
Red Hot Chili Pepper.
No, right.
Alright, how about bites the dust
Bites
and
the
eat
du-
Kira?
You can have remote control stands, and they're a lot more simple
Yeah.
in terms of what they can do. But those usually the simple ones are oftentimes very powerful in that singular goal.
What's
you
it called? Sheer Heart Attack? Kira's power? The turtle thing?
The turtle in part
I
5.
think it's Sheer Heart Attack. No, the little look at me, and he's like a little grenade that just flies. He's got a little skull. It's so funny.
What's the other one I like a lot?
So I will say I love the Egyptian gods section. So if you could cut it down to those 9
Yeah, like
plus the
Anubis
first
was
3
sick.
episodes,
Yeah.
like I would have loved part 3. I
So,
really, really enjoyed
It seemed
the
like
ending.
the length for you was
And
the real.
oh my gosh, the powers of the Egyptian gods were really cool. The sword that would just
That was sick.
steal
The cursed sword.
Yeah, that was insane.
That was sick.
So
The
was
two
this-
gamblers. That was
The Darby Brothers.
honestly
were
Darby Brothers
the
were my-
gamblers
Darby Brothers
were
were my favorite.
my
I think it's
favorite
my
by
favorite.
far.
they're
Yeah.
great.
The poker one is so intellectual, and like
so
I want
beautiful.
to shout out the video game here because the video game is trash. The one on PS4 that I played.
Shout out.
Yeah, you
you're
really, yeah,
garbage.
you
No, hold on.
You really hit me in the first half, dude.
It's honestly trash. The campaign is one of those like old Naruto game campaigns where it's just like little text bubbles and you mash through them and you're like,
Oh, and then you fight.
and then you
yeah,
just
yeah.
fight arbitrary fights until it's over.
It's just fights.
But
in
then
sequence,
in
yeah.
the middle of the campaign, you have this insane simulation of the Darby brother poker match, and you
No
can
way.
bluff, you can lie, you can like guess what's in his hand. It's so comprehensive, and he has a stress meter that you can like get up to make him like have that little stroke that he has or whatever.
Oh my god!
It is so much fun, and like it's so high stakes and stuff, and I was
To-
just like blown away with
To
that.
describe a JoJo battle is essentially back and forth of you thought.
You thought
So
Man,
it's
turns
literally just
out-
like you activated my trap card times 20, just
Yeah.
back and forth.
Which was fun.
Those were great. Like you think it's over, and then they keep one upping and big braining each other until someone
Except
comes up.
Jotaro
Right.
was always
unless he
the
just
big
punches you harder and he wins.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that, or he just already figured out your stand before anything happens.
So can I say two things?
Yes.
Number one is my conspiracy has always been, and I think this is unique to me until we put it out there. So I didn't steal this off the internet, but I think the truth is that Araki designed stands. Half of the reason is just so he could have Jotaro fight with his hands in his pockets.
You've told me this one before.
Because
Yeah.
it looks so. I mean, it looks so cool, but it's also so dumb that he's just like walking up to Dio with his hands in his pockets, and then he starts punching him without moving.
What's that meme you sent me about? He had one hand still in his pocket, hanging off a cliff still.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Yeah, so the
Oh
guy,
my
was going off on
gosh.
Twitter
He's-
about this motherfucker thinks he's so
Yeah,
cool
he thinks
hanging
he's so,
off
he
the
can't take his hands out of
cliff.
his pockets. He's gonna fall off this cliff.
He didn't even need to take either hand out of the pocket.
But- and
he
yet
could have had Star Platinum grab him while he had no
That's
hands
what I'm saying.
in his
If he was
pocket.
I'm
really
surprised
OG,
he
he
even
would've done
managed to
that.
pull his hands out.
I think I agree with you on that. 100%.
Cool.
Because I think his goal was to make Jotaro
make him
the
cool.
absolute coolest
Yeah.
guy.
And he
you
still
can
is. He's
imagine.
still the
Calm,
coolest Joestar by
collected.
And I'll be
far.
real with you, he is.
He's great.
Okay.
He's
yeah.
one of the coolest characters in all of anime by far.
Yeah.
It's crazy because
He's
he's just
never
always he smiles like once in the whole manga, and
That's
people.
actually his idea. The idea of him is he is cool under pressure.
That's
Yes,
it.
That's
Yeah,
his whole
that's him.
character.
Because like he'll be like have a gun to his head, and he'll be like, "Are you gonna shoot me or what, pussy?"
Right.
But my second thing that I was gonna say is that you have to understand that in each of these fights, like you were saying about like the back and forth and outsmarting each other thing, I'm also convinced, and this might not be unique to me, that Araki just like reads a Snapple fact and he designs a stand around it. Right?
Yes,
Like
right?
he'll read that like your hemoglobin is full of iron, and then he makes this stand that magnetizes iron, and then like halfway through the fight, the stand user just figures out, oh my gosh, I can take the iron out of your blood cells and make you suffocate because they
Make you-
can't carry oxygen anymore. And you're like, this is really gimmicky,
Such a
Araki, but it's
convoluted-
so
yeah,
cool.
It's such a convoluted way to get to a death, like to get your
Right.
job done.
Right.
There's
He's like, I can't just hit you anymore.
There's 5 mental hurdles to overcome.
So I would say part 3 is like where like I mean,
get-
I guess you could argue that like, you know, Josuke still hits hard, Okuyasu still hits hard, but past that, like Rohan, and the other like I call them like intellectual stands, the ones that like you have to like think to
You have
win.
rank through. Yeah, it's tied to their
I
skill
think those are so much stronger, except for Jotaro, obviously, because he's the most OP character ever.
Those are my favorite. I think what's the stand that evolves over time in part 4?
Oh, Echoes.
Echoes. I actually really did like
Pink
the idea
Floyd,
because you
by
do
the
have to
way.
be. Echoes is a power basically. If you hit something,
an egg.
It's an egg at first. It's like a gestating stand,
Yeah.
and then it matures. But you basically
You mean reverb?
reverb. Yeah, like when reverb
I was
makes
like,
things heavier.
did I not see this
We
yet?
might have had
No.
a different translation. Okay, so first of all, I want to say this. Maybe this is Ethan's fallen victim to this. If you're watching it on anything that's original source is Crunchyroll, they're going to replace every copyrighted
That
thing
was annoying as
with
hell.
a ridiculous name. So Reverb is probably their generic name for Echoes, which is the name of an album. Like the White Album in Part 5, what was that called? Something insane, like Frozen Tundra. I don't remember. Something so stupid.
Yeah, it was something dumb. And yeah, because so every time I would bring up to Pat, like, oh yeah, this stand was so cool. He's like, you mean like AC/DC? I remember you saying like, oh, they didn't
Yeah,
call it
that's,
AC/DC. It was
like Red Hot-
It was ECDC.
Yeah, well, that one I think is on
works.
purpose.
It works, and it was like, oh yeah, ECDC. What's that from? It's like, you mean AC/DC?
Oh, the one that we
I'm
were
like,
talking
oh,
about
that's
is there's
dumb.
one in part 5. His stand is called Fisherman, but in reality it's called Beach
yeah.
Boy, and that's
Beach
not even
Boy.
close.
Right.
You'll hear him say Beach Boy, and then it'll say Fisherman. Go.
Oh
It's
my
so
gosh.
silly.
But yeah, part 4 real quick.
Killer Queen.
Are you or no? Are
Killer
you,
Queen is.
Are you?
Wait, you
done
got to
with,
Killer Queen already?
Yeah.
Yes.
Dang,
yeah.
you're
Are
flying,
you done
man.
with shitting on part 3, Ethan?
Oh yeah. Are we moved on to part 4?
Yeah, we're moved on. I don't know. I
think
feel
part
like
2 has a lot of problems too. But
they could have done it in 20 episodes, and I would have loved it.
Yeah. The length is
I
definitely
agree.
people's like not okay.
and
point.
he kind of sticks to that. Like part 5 is a little long, but part 4 is kind of shorter, right?
Yeah, part 4 felt shorter. It actually
30-ish.
it's way shorter than 46 for sure.
It's 36 episodes
yeah.
rather than 46.
Right. I think that's a big difference though.
But I haven't felt that bad about it. So
Well,
No.
also stuff happens in part 4 to
Right.
be honest.
So
Like,
part 4 is essentially murder mystery in a little town.
right.
That's-
well,
I
plus you're
think-
getting a little bit of slice of life,
Little slice
Exactly.
of life.
where you got absolutely zero of it in part 3.
So I actually think that part 4 is where
And they
JoJo
explain.
becomes what JoJo is always gonna be, because it becomes this from this like I'm big and strong, I'm gonna punch you harder. It starts being this like this intellectual mind game fights, but also this extremely strong aesthetic of like really leaning
safe.
away from masculinism or traditional masculinity
Right.
to like this new kind of Araki's definition of like
Metro Boy.
it's a little
very
metro.
metro.
Like after part 4, like I mean, honestly, Josuke's still pretty ripped.
Right.
But then like Giorno's a twig.
They're all twigs after that. Everyone's
Jolene's a twig.
And that's the weirdest thing to me. I actually kind of dig that because it shows him. It's like you said, he's been doing it for 40 years. It
Confirmed.
He's owning
Ricky
it.
likes twigs.
shows. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
well,
a twiggy. I'm a twiggy boy.
Twiggy, yeah.
No, but like it goes from like like the action star aesthetic of this big rippling muscly dudes to like this super like feminine. All the poses get more feminine.
The colors. Jotaro
start
wears white
popping.
instead of black, and he has a heart on his hat instead of a fist.
Which
It's
is
insane.
crazy. So like so even the characters that used to be what they were in that traditional sense of masculinity change with the aesthetic too.
But that's why I love part 4 as well, is because the aesthetic changes so violently from like part 3, which was like a lot of like desert and like
Gritty,
nighttime,
yeah.
gritty, manly Indiana Jones. Like this part 4 comes in and the sky's usually yellow or pink or green or something. It's just
it's some
fun.
weird.
Well, I think that might have just been a setting thing. Plus, now it is a
No, for sure.
seaside town, and before they were going through the shittiest places in the world.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, I'm with you there, but I still think that
Shittiest
like
places.
the color inversion, like the mountains are
Deserts and
purple. You know what
shit,
I'm
yeah.
saying? Like
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
Josuke wears this open shirt
He's
uniform
very,
with a
very
heart and
I
a
do
peace
like
sign.
how none of the student uniforms are ever correct.
They're not even similar.
No, it's like we're all in our uniforms.
They all go to different schools apparently.
He wears-
So that's what it was. Yeah.
Oyakasu wears one with money signs all over it and a billion.
Tell me it's
on
not
it.
sick. He has billions on
Yes,
his
that-
sleeve.
that boy-
he goes to school. Like
He's got money on his mind
That's
and
the
his
original
mind on his
billion boy.
money. He wants to get
Yeah.
rich, and I respect that.
Hey boys,
He loves money.
I think we might have to split this up into 2 parts.
You think so?
For real.
So basically, there's so much packed into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that it feels like we want to really like say all the stuff we want to. We're gonna make this 2-parter. So stick around for next week for the second part of this particular episode. We're gonna do a back-to-back, and then we'll do our worst of weeb warning. We'll need a new name for it. You got me thinking about it now.
I'm sorry, guys.
you got me
Yeah,
second guessing.
I think
I think Worst of Weep is good, but I also think Ethan's right. There are other
There
names
are
out
other
there.
ones. We'll
we did. This is such a fun topic because JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has grown so much in the long run that the series has.
Oh yeah.
There's just so much we got to talk about. So I thought maybe possibly doing a 2-parter now that we've gone 45 plus
Oh,
minutes.
dude, more content, baby.
Plus we'll
Let's
get
do
to
it.
we'll get to throw in the worst of weeb on the
Sick.
next episode. So guys, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much. Stick around for the next part.
Thank you to Feet Patbot.
Thank you for having me. Beep boop.
Beep boop. He's bringing the scoop.
Is it Patbot or RoboPat? I've heard both names
You
on
decide.
this podcast.
RoboPat.
RoboPat's
Okay.
Robopat think is we've been doing it.
I've
RoboPat.
definitely heard both.
So we're on Spotify and Apple and Stitcher. We'll be out every Monday.
Everywhere podcasts are syndicated.
Oh
That's
yeah,
right, that's what you
we'll
say.
find you guys.
And YouTube.
Yep.
And YouTube. That's where I find my podcast. No
Please
lie.
like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube.
Smash that like
Actually,
button.
if you could dislike some of them, the algorithm's growing, and now controversy gets you spread.
Interesting.
So
that's good to know.
like
I
and
disagree.
dislike.
Only like it, please. And then if you could leave us a review on iTunes, that'd be ideal. That'll help us get our content out to more people on iTunes as a platform.
Yeah, we really do appreciate the listens. We appreciate the reviews. But until next class, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Ethan.
This has been
Patrick's not on
Weeball.
often enough to know, but this is also Patrick. And
I don't know if I get to introduce myself like that.
you guys just got learnt.
Learned.
Peace.
Reese's.
Deuces.
I'm chewing.